So today we're going to go through something I've been thinking about for a while here is creating your personal learning plan. So as you know, Dynamics 365 is a very comprehensive product, especially with all the new modules they've added on. So I thought I would go through some of the things you need to keep in mind when you're trying to figure out how to up-level your knowledge of the product to either change positions or just become better at what you're doing. So we're going to go through that today. I hope that I have holes in this so that people can contribute to things I missed. I put everything I could think of in here, but I know there's some stuff that I'll probably think of tonight, like, I wish I'd mentioned that. So this is being recorded, of course. It's going to be up on YouTube later. Some of the things I'm going to show and mention today, I will also send out as documents so that to kind of get you kick-started, and we'll cover those when we get to those points. So just keep that in mind. So my name is Mitch Milam. I think everybody probably already knows that. This is how you can get in touch with me. I'd love to connect either before or after webinars or anything like that. So please drop me a line if you got any questions or any comments. As always, if you got ideas for topics for future webinars, I would love to hear that because I'm running out of ideas and stuff. I've got 2-3 more lined up that I'm going to have to do related to the customer service stuff that I was working on for the past couple months. So I need to finish that up, and then I'm on to new stuff. So a little bit of housekeeping here. You are muted, of course, but if you want to ask a question, just put it in the question box. Or if you want to speak, just raise your hand, and I will unmute you so you can do that. So you can ask questions throughout the thing as we go along, or just wait till the end and ask your questions there. Either one is perfectly fine with me. So I am going to have my CRM/Dynamics 365 administrating and maintenance workshop on the 22nd. So that's going to be at 9 o'clock. That's an online thing. I'm going to send out an email probably later today with the specifics and pricing and all the other stuff for that. So it's going to be probably somewhere between 2 and 3 hours, depending on how long it takes us to get through the materials and how many questions we have and stuff like that. And so keep an eye out for that if you're interested in upping your maintenance game. So getting started. So this is something that is being attributed to Albert Einstein, and something that I think is pretty true. So let's pretend this is what he said, and this is how it works. So if you spend 15 minutes a day on a subject, you can actually get very good at it in a year. Sometimes you may see this phrase where he says, if you study for 15 minutes a day, you'll be an expert within a year. That's commonly how it's meant, and that's not too far off. So here are the stages that I've kind of defined for a Dynamics 365 person. You start off as an end user, then you turn into a power user, an administrator, customizer, developer, and architect. Not everybody goes along the same path. So you may jump from power user to customizer, and then you may jump from customizer to architect to developer, whatever it might be. So not everybody has to follow this exact path, and a lot of people don't want to. So a lot of people, they want to be able to do administration and customizations and JavaScript and things like that, but they're never going to write a plugin, and that's okay. So just keep that in mind. So these are the general stages that I've kind of defined. So an end user I kind of classified as somebody who knows how to use the product to do their job. And that could be a few tasks. It could be many tasks. Again, it's going to really depend on what you do with the product. And again, it's constantly changing. So your life as an end user will be modified every time that they come up with a release, strictly because things change. A power user builds on the skills of the end user. So again, you have to know the product. You know and understand the advanced features. You get to help others. One of the things about being a power user is that you learn things, and people will go to you for help and advice on how to do things. You also start to understand the businesses and its processes and how things work, and hopefully you can contribute back to the business by actually creating automation, say workflows or business process flows or whatever it might be to help you and your other users become more efficient and better at what they're doing. So that's the whole thing of being a power user in my mind. And again, these are all my opinions, so your mileage will probably vary. So, if anything pops up, just let me know. An administrator builds on the power user skill. So what happens a lot of times is somebody starts off with an end user, they get really good at it, they start helping other people, and the next thing you know, they're actually the administrator for the system. This is just the way things have worked since I've been in the software business or the IT business, for a long time, and this is just how things generally work. But what you generally do, you have system maintenance that you do, administration for users, troubleshooting, any kind of automation. Say you're creating new stuff to either automate like workflows or business process flows or whatever it might be that are helping do the daily work everybody comes up with. A customizer, as I mentioned earlier, can build on administrator skills. Doesn't really necessarily have to be. Maybe it's just not the path. And again, it really depends on what on how you choose to advance. In charge of creating new components like fields and entities, processes, visualization, dashboards, whatever it might be. Also, in most cases, the customizer is also at least somewhat knowledgeable in JavaScript. Maybe not an expert. They use what we call clipboard inheritance, which means you cut and paste stuff out of other people's blogs on the internet. That's how I think all of us got started. And so as you work with stuff, you get better and better at it. Finally, you turn into a developer. So you have all the stuff that you do with customization. You're more fluent with JavaScript than you were before. You can create plugins. And the key here is you understand the processes of the business and how to map them to the processes within Dynamics 365 so that you can make the work of the user better. And then where you have a hole, you can fill it with some type of custom solution that will accomplish the goal by applying some development efforts to that. That's the idea there. And then the final thing is the architect. So the architect knows everything about the system. They know how Dynamics 365 can help the business. They know what the product does inside and out. And the key here is, and the thing I love about Dynamics 365/CRM is there is almost always 4 or 5 ways to do any one thing within the system. It's your job as an architect to figure out which one is the best for the given thing that has to happen. So if you have a requirement for a piece of automation, well, is that going to be a plugin or is it going to be JavaScript? Can we get by with a business rule or do we need JavaScript? All of these little things need to be taken into account. And at the end of the day, you're the one who decides, okay, given the requirements of the business and the resources we have allocated to make it happen, this is the choice we're going to make. So that's really where the architect comes into play. And as the last 2 bullets mentioned, you translate business requirements into functional requirements. So you find out what the business needs and you figure out, again, how to do it. And then you work with end users and developers to actually define and create a solution. Okay. So let's talk about education. If you never heard of Stephen Covey, he's the gentleman who created the 7 habits of highly successful people. And one of his habits, number 7, is sharpening the saw. So I don't know about you guys, but I cannot spend a day without learning how to do something new. I don't know, and I've got an article halfway written. It's been halfway written for years, quite honestly. I can't figure out if it's just a habit or if I'm addicted to learning new stuff. So as soon as I finish and publish it, you'll be the first to know. So the question is, are you learning something new every day? If you're not learning something new every day, then why are you not? Do you not take time out to learn something new, or does it just not happen? So sometimes you can see the way I used to tell people, you could tell when I'm working on brand new stuff, it's because I'm writing blog articles on brand new stuff. If I'm doing the same thing over and over again, you don't see any blog articles from me. That's kind of how things have been working the past few years. This is from a high school basketball coach, Tim Notke, and I think this is pretty much says it all. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. So again, you have to put the effort in to be better than you were yesterday. If you just want to coast, generally you run out of steam sooner or later. I think everybody's been through that. So here are the types of resources where most people get their information. So websites and blogs. The MVP community has got some stellar players these days in the Dynamics 365 or business solutions as they're called now. So lots of good folks out there writing lots of good information, developing tools, sharing knowledge, either on their website or in talks or YouTube, things like that. People still write books. There's on-demand courses like stuff that I have. There's in-person courses. Users groups, I think, are kind of hit or miss if you really get involved or not. So I know here in Dallas we need to restart our CRMEG group because we don't have the attendance, but there's lots of CRM being done in this area. So we just got to get more people notified and aware of it. And finally, conferences. So Microsoft had a conference not too long ago. It was online, but they also have in-person conferences like Ignite, which is in Orlando this year, and Envision, which are kind of rolled into one big show. And then, of course, the CRMUG has their conferences. Extreme 365 as well. So those are the kind of the big ones there. So, a lot of people are like, well, I can't afford to go to the conference. But a lot of times, you think about it, well, can you not afford to go to a conference? Think about that. Yes, it costs money. You've got, for like, if you're a consultant, not only do you have money that comes out of your pocket for travel and hotel and the conference fee, et cetera, like that, but then you also have lost income because you're at a conference for a week, not billing for a week. So it costs consultants more money than it does standard end users and things like that. So that's always something you have to put into play. But I generally get more value out of a conference than I put in monetarily, just from meeting people and finding out new things and talking to people about what they're doing and networking. All of that is just the kind of the incidentals for conferences. So I really encourage you to find a conference that you like and go with that. Some useful websites. So both Microsoft and the CRMUG have blog feeds that people have basically signed up, and they will actually kind of consolidate blogs into a central location. So here's how you get to those. CRM tip of the day. Some of the fellow MVPs have a tip of the day site that they will put up a tip every day, and then they also have an offshoot of that. There's actually a YouTube channel. And so what happens with that is that some of the tips they have are actually video recordings that they've created just to give you more information, because maybe it's a complex topic and things like that. Plus, it gives them an actual more time to spend with you showing things. My stuff, of course, I usually put this at the very front of the presentation, but this kind of fits in here better. So you can find the webinars mostly at my webinar page. At the bottom, you could always go to youtube.com/XRMcoaches and find all my webinars there. A lot of the stuff we're talking about today is actually covered in other webinars in more detail, so just take a look around for that. Just go out there. Knowledge Bits is my email delivery service where I give tips and tricks, so that I probably need to update it some. I need to redo the architecture a bit. Right now I'm using the Click Dimensions nurture campaign, and I want to pull away from that a bit to basically do some other stuff that's just kind of outside the capabilities. And then I already have learning plans, which is kind of the theme of the webinar today. I've got learning plans for a few things on my free stuff page there, so take a look at those as well. So these are all free things that I personally created for everybody. And again, there are lots of other resources out there from partners, MVPs, other people, Microsoft included. There's also help built into the product. So this is when you go to the training tab on Dynamics 365, there is a help and training there, and this is the page you get. So what's new, getting started, links to ebooks and videos. A lot of those are going to be a cross version, so you need to pay kind of attention to what version that they're actually working with. Sometimes it's obvious in the title, sometimes it's not. Microsoft is also very good about putting things out on YouTube, so they have a couple YouTube channels out there. And then, as you can see, they've got the different modules broken down: sales, customer service, field service, and PSA. So depending on what you're looking for, you can probably find stuff. So user guides, application guides, and then finally under the looking for admin content, there's some more stuff that points to TechNet to get you some information there. So let's talk about certifications and exams. So these are the main tests that we have, or exams that we have for Dynamics 365. So these are just kind of continuations of the stuff that for previous versions of CRM. I've taken the customization configuration, it was pretty good. I have not had a chance to take the other three. I'll probably do that in about a month. And I know a lot of people have written that some of these tests are quite comprehensive. So that's always good. I like tests to be not impossible, but difficult. I know when I think it was a CRM 2011 course or exams hit, I knew myself and several people, the apps test was written in such a way that nobody passed it. I know Larry can kind of attest to that. So people who know what they're doing couldn't even get it right. So They kind of redid the way they did things on that, which is good. So a lot of times what I use exams for is actually to test my knowledge. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, this is new. We now actually have certifications tied to our thing. Now, we had other types of certifications like specialists and stuff like that, but they finally gave us MCSAs and MCSEs, which is what the other branches of Microsoft certifications fall under. So MCSE is the top, MCSA is the kind of the one underneath it. And so we now have three of these. So Microsoft Dynamics 365, 365 for operations, and then business applications. So Microsoft Dynamics 365 takes two tests, which is the online deployment and configuration customization. Operations is going to be geared toward the AX part of the house. So they want you to understand SQL Server and AX development. And then finally, the MCSE, which is the top level, they want you to understand the others. So generally the way this works, if I back up for a second, you generally get the MCSAs first, and then you go into the MCSE. A lot of the tests actually apply. So if I go to the last one here, we actually have different tests, which is quite fascinating. So for business applications, they want you to have sales and customer service, which is out of the Dynamics 365 CRM part, and then distribution, trade, and financials from the AX part. Will wants to know, how often does new MB2 exams come out? Generally, Will, with a new version. So that's typically how they work. So anyway, so generally when they come out with either a new product or a new version, they'll do that. Now, you'll notice if I go back to the exam list, you don't see anything on field service or on project service automation, okay, or marketing, because marketing is kind of in flux at the moment. So this is probably the comprehensive list here. Okay. So let's talk about defining your goal for your learning. So what do you want to accomplish? Okay, and then here's just some things I thought of. So a lot of people, their main goal is to get certified. A lot of people, if they're hiring, especially consultants or other people for full-time Dynamics positions, they want people who are certified. So again, you've only got 4 tests, study up for them, pass them, put it on your resume. Okay, if you didn't know, your transcript, they give you the ability to get a link that can be passed to someone, so that if they want to verify what you know and when you took stuff and what your current level of certification is, you can just give them that URL, and it has a code with it, and they will actually be able to look at it live. So that's always good if they want to verify what's going on with that. Product knowledge. Do you just want to know more about what you're doing? You know, that isn't a perfectly acceptable thing. You know, you're working at a company. We just got this new Dynamics 365 thing. I want to know what it does and how it does it. Or maybe you want to change jobs. Maybe you want to become an administrator, or you want to become a consultant. You know, maybe that's in your path. So, you know, define this. You know, what do I need to learn? Or the last one, maybe you just want to be the smartest kid in the block. So there's nothing wrong with that. You know. I have met many smart kids on the block, and some of them are good, some of them are bad, but you know, they're still pretty smart. Let's see. Already says, with exams, is it possible to study one on your own? Is there online free prep material? I don't think there's any online free prep material, quite honestly, but it's possible. They have lots of stuff out there that you can do, test stuff, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute. So Jaya says, would that be a path to become an MVP? That's kind of a trick question right there, because we don't know the path to become an MVP, because they don't tell us what it takes to become an MVP. You get to become an MVP by helping people out. I became an MVP by writing lots of blog articles. My first year, I think I wrote over 100. I think it was 102 is what I came up with. And that got me nominated. And I was, you know, MVP for 11 years, almost 11. Yeah. So, so you got that. So here's the kind of functional curve here. You have the application. So remember, with Dynamics 365, they broke the product up into pieces. So you have sales, sales and marketing, customer service, project service automation, field service, things like that. And you have functionality, and then finally within the functionality you have tasks. So you've probably seen this slide. This is out of the Microsoft propaganda machine. This lists all the big pieces. So project service automation, sales, customer service, field service, marketing, and operations. Followed on the side at the same time by either Office 365, Power BI, Cortana, the Azure IoT stuff, and last but not least, you have Power Apps, Microsoft Flow, and the Common Data Model. So if you try to do all this stuff right here, you're in store for about 2 or 3 years worth of work just to figure out what's going on. That's not what you do. You pick something you want to work with, and then you go into it. So you can learn by function. So here are sales, service, and settings. So if you want to learn stuff about sales, you basically, what I would do is I would go and pick one and like go into accounts. What can you do with an account? How are things laid out? What are the features of accounts? There's lots of little bitty things in there that people don't even know. For instance, did you know that when you are inside of an account and you add a new contact to that account, it will copy the address information from the account to the contact? If you create a contact and then add a reference to the account later, it does not do that. I gave training a couple years ago to a place that had CRM for, 6 or 7 years, and they didn't know that. And it took them about 15 minutes to create a contact and an account because they were doing everything the hard way. So little bitty things like that are built into the system that may not even be documented anymore. For instance, activities for the account roll up all of the underlying activities for the contacts and the opportunities, etc. That's been there for a long time. It got modified recently to add other entities in there. But just the fact that you need to know that happens and can talk about that as a feature, that needs to happen. So again, just finding out what these things do. And if you want to learn the administration, you go into settings. There's lots of stuff in there. Every one of those selections you make here, the sub areas, has things underneath it. You need to know what they all do. One really cool thing that you can do is use the certification as a guide for what you want to see, or what you want to learn. So this came out of the customization and configuration exam. And as you can see, it lists out all of the major areas. So configure Dynamics 365, implement new entities, relationship fields, create solutions, forms, views, and visualizations, and then finally implement business rules, workflows, and business process flows. So those are the major buckets. Then each one of those has a specific thing that they're testing on underneath that. This is where you get your list of things to know. And then you can turn it into something like this. I'll be sending this out. I've got to finish grabbing all the information, but I'm going to pull it off the website and put it into a Word document like you see here and email it to everybody, a link to it when I get all the show notes done. It's probably on Monday, so don't expect it before then, please. If it happens, it happens. But if not, it depends on my weekend. So what I would do with this is literally I would go and learn, say, everything there is to know about auditing, okay? There's 4 or 5 things you really need to learn about auditing, how it works, how you manage it, things like that. When I'm done with that, I can put a checkbox beside that item. And I'd say I'm done. And then I go to the next one and I do the same thing. You don't have to go in order. Some of these things are actually built, so you need like the security roles, identify security roles, define permissions and privileges, configure access levels, configure security roles, assign. That is the order in which you have to do those things. Okay? The others may or may not apply, so you just kind of have to use some of those things. Remember, you cannot eat an elephant in one bite. The way you eat an elephant, if you choose to eat elephants, which is not something people normally do around here in North Texas, is one bite at a time. So again, Dynamics 365 has been around for, what we're going on a few months now. Started off quite a long time ago. Some of us have been working with it for a very long time. I personally started in 1995. Okay, it has changed a lot in those years. Okay, so it's always being enhanced. They always add new stuff. Sometimes they go and fix stuff that don't work right, but that's neither here nor there. Not that I'm bitter or anything like that. But the idea is there is always something new. What I do the first time I get an update, so like the preview for the next release is coming up here soon. And, the first thing I do is I start clicking buttons. I don't know what they added. Well, the first thing I do is I go into settings and what did they add? So I go into settings and click on every tab and scroll up and down. Then I go to all these things and go into customizations and start just clicking around. That's how you learn stuff. Okay. So some tips and tricks here. Track and review your progress frequently. So again, that Word document I was showing you earlier, that is my tracking document. Okay. Start with what you know. What's funny about this, I probably should have said this, start with what you think you know, because probably what happens is you may not know stuff. Okay. You think you know stuff, but then you get into it, you don't know. I remember one time I was taking a certification test, and this was years ago. I don't even know what version. I think it was version 4. And they asked questions about the holiday schedule for a user. And I'm like, what holiday schedule for a user? Well, it was one of those weird things that was in a tab that was at the back of something. You clicked on this thing, and it showed this other thing, and that's where you could put your vacation schedule in. And I'm like, I didn't even know that was there. And so that is a way that you use the certification exams to actually make you better. Another one that I think is very key is be consistent. So block out some time on your calendar. So everybody has a different time that they like to work. Years ago, I was a late night person. Now I'm kind of an early morning person. I get it kind of early and do things when it's quiet. Nobody's bothering me with phone calls and stuff like that. The kids are still in bed. The wife is not harassing me to do whatever it is that I don't ever do. I talked to her about that. But anyway, so block out a time on your calendar and just, go do stuff. Okay. That's the easiest way to do that. And as I mentioned, certifications the exams are a really good way to test your knowledge. Now, there is a money amount associated with that test. I have gone and I have invested money, especially now that they have, they used to call it Second Chance. I think that looking yesterday, they changed the name to something else, but you can actually retake the exam for free after you paid for it once. The price is now up to like $165, I think, for in the States here anyway. So I have actually gone and taken exams just to see what it was like, strictly because I knew I could retake it for free. And so I've actually done that. Okay. So here is my take on learning. Know, comprehend, understand, and teach. Nothing will ever prepare you for a topic like telling somebody else how to do it. Trust me. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people inside and outside the industry is nothing prepares you your level of knowledge like having to teach it to somebody else. Okay, so that's the best thing right there. And the cool thing is the amount of karma points you get from teaching other people things is, I think, very high. So don't ever forget that. It's a lot of fun sometimes too. Sometimes it's not fun, but most of the time it is fun. Okay, we're getting to the most important step of all of this is you need to practice. Anybody ever seen this? This is the actual tag phrase for Nike, the shoe/apparel company. And it's so true. Just go and do it. You can read books all day long. You can do blog posts. You can watch videos, stuff like that. Nothing will ever secure it in your mind like starting to click the buttons. Okay? This is my favorite, one of my favorite quotes from Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was a martial artist. Maybe everybody knows, maybe not. He was also a philosopher. And if you dig into some of the things that he actually talked about, he wasn't very old when he passed away, but he had a lot of knowledge in him from all the years of work with stuff. So the key here is I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. So test environment. How am I going to do all this button clicking if I don't have any place to do the button clicking? So you can practice on your own environment, assuming you have one, right? Don't do things that are crazy, will get you in trouble, fired, or otherwise elevated to the level of a resume update event. But what I want you to do is, if you have the facilities to do it and you want to work with the on-premise version, you can create a virtual machine, install and configure Dynamics 365 in that environment. That's really good if you are working at a company that does is your CRM is on premise. So that's really good because that way you can do it without having too many issues and stuff like that. If all else fails, just sign up for a trial of Dynamics 365 online. You got 30 days. This is where having that plan documented really helps because it kind of gives you It gives you a deadline. Now, quite honestly, it's not really 30 days. Don't tell anybody, but it's actually more than 30 days. It could go longer than that. It'll just finally not work one day. They'll start sending you hate mail, and finally it's like, hey, by the way, this is going off tomorrow, and they mean it at that time. Okay, so something to consider there. And remember, sorry about that. One of the things to remember that some of the features that we have are only available in online. So some of the stuff that you see, even like in my admin course I got coming up, some of the things that are really, really cool and wonderful are only going to be in online. So you're just going to have to get used to working in an environment. Okay, questions. Ben asked, do they still lock your org into whatever you pick the org name when you sign up for a trial? Yes. Once you do that, once you pick the online thing, you can't actually change it without a lot of work. Who else? Anybody have their hand up? I don't think so. What other questions you guys got today? Keepohan says, how do you create a virtual machine? I don't have other resources to go into that. It's a lot of work, quite honestly. We used to have a virtual machine already configured for us, but they stopped providing it to partners years ago. So you have to create it with, basically, to do that, you have to build up a Windows server like a 2012. You have to load SQL, you have to load IIS, you have to load CRM, Dynamics 365, and you have to configure everything. It's a lot of work. It can take you days. Christian says, can I talk about licensing? Christian, what do you want to know? I don't like to talk about licensing, but I can answer a couple simple questions. Let's see. You said, can you mix two licenses? What are you talking about exactly? Sales and customer service, that's actually not a license per se. It's an app. So quite honestly, so the way that this is written is the retail price for an application, either sales or service, is $95. Or you can buy plan one for $115. That's retail price. So if you have a large organization, the more you buy, the cheaper it is. So you can pay 95 times 2 or 115 times 1. So the moment you go over one license, over one application, so sales and customer service will be two applications. So that what's that, $190 versus $115. So the moment you go over two apps, then you plan one, you get everything. So it's very simple. Let's see what else we got. Sanjaya says, do you think developing sample programs is a good way of learning? Yes, absolutely. In fact, I've got a JavaScript course that I'm converting to on demand, and if anybody's ever been in any of my programming classes, I exercise you to death because that's the only way you're going to learn something. And so that's a good way. So basically, going out and doing semi-real stuff is the best way to learn stuff. Like again, you're not going to learn it by reading; you're going to learn it by doing. John asks, are any other resources outside of Microsoft for help with exams? John, I'm working on some practice tests and stuff like that, but man, it's in all honesty, I've been working on those for a long time. It's embarrassingly how long. I mean, I've got hundreds of test questions created. I've just got to formulate them and put them into a mechanism where you can actually buy it and do the tests and stuff like that. I just have not gotten that far. Munir asks, in my experience, how often has AX knowledge been useful? Seems highest certification to AX. My level of AX knowledge is spelling AX. That is my level of knowledge. I do not do ERP. I'm okay with that. Most everybody that I work with is okay with that too. You either are an accountant or you're not an accountant, is my professional opinion about it. So in all honesty, if you're into ERP, that's what you do. Most of the people who do ERP may do a little bit of CRM on the side, but maybe not. Very few people that I know, and there's a few that do have a CRM and ERP backgrounds at the same time. but they're very, very few and far between. So already says sorry, can you talk today? So for certifications, are we saying that it's worth investing in a course, or is it rather trying to do it on your own? Um, that is a personal thing. Everybody learns differently. So some people can read and do it. Some people like to be taught. Some people like to be shown. So I really can't answer that. I don't know how you like to learn. Some people can do all three. So traditionally, I've done in-person classes, either online or physically in person. That works good. But other times, like I said, I'm doing some on-demand stuff so that people can work whenever they want. So everybody learns differently, and usually, there's really no, in all honesty, no commonality to how people like to learn. Pierre says, "Do you recommend using a sandbox for testing any org before you go live?" Of course you do, Pierre. That's why it's there. Always test your work unless you want to get fired. Unless you're the boss, and it's kind of hard to fire yourself. David says, "Have you heard any more on the Small Business Edition for sales release date and features?" Nothing. They did show there was, I mentioned kind of earlier, and then not the name, but they had an online conference the other day, about 3 weeks ago, and they kind of previewed some of that stuff. Truly, I have no idea what's going to be shipping. So the way that my take has always been with Microsoft, when it's in preview mode, it's pretty much done. Everything you hear or see before then is conjecture. As an MVP, I saw things sometimes years before they were ready. Some things never even shipped. So until it hits public, it's up for grabs. Walter says, "Are licenses per org or per instance?" They're actually org and instance are the same thing. You're questioning tenant or instance. They're per tenant. Okay, Hassan says he is the other problem is CRM3, worked with CRM for 9 years, but not with 365. Any good point to start. So Dynamics 365 is really CRM 2016 version 2. So it's 8.2, quite honestly. So it's not a huge change. From a developer standpoint, there's besides a few things like applications or the app model, it's no different at all. So all the stuff you've been doing, it works the same way. When you get into field service and PSA, things like that, those are a little bit different. But again, they're just CRM entities. There's nothing magical about that. Larry says he's going to start teaching MB2 716 courses for ONLC starting in July. That's great, Larry. They finally got that out. That's good. Walter asked, "Do you know any resources regarding DevOps integration to the 365?" Yes. There are a couple packages out there. Now, ADX Studio had an ALM package that they were selling that after the purchase, they didn't throw it away. They just put it out there and said, "Here you go, no support, don't call us," type of thing. That's still a viable thing. Other people within the community have created additional things. The support guys up in Fargo created a series of PowerShell scripts to do stuff. I've used that. So there are stuff you just have to dig around. If you just look for it, you can find some stuff out there. We'll ask, going back to certs, how often do you renew or update yours? When I had the money, quite honestly. I literally went from CRM 2013 to CRM 2016. I did not do 2015 because I just didn't want to spend the money on it. Because in all honesty, this sounds kind of arrogant, but it wasn't doing me any good. It really wasn't. So it was just something else I put down. Nobody ever asked if I was certified or not. Now, as an MCT, I had to have a certain level of certification. So that's one of the reasons I had to keep up with certain things. But yeah, I went from 2013 for most things. I had a couple that I had to have to maintain certain things. So I got those done for 2015, but almost everything I did 2016. So basically a few months ago, I took 6 tests in 3 days and passed 5. I test very, very well. And the one that I didn't pass was actually the customer service because it asked me about SLAs and entitlements, which I knew nothing about because I had zero customers using them. That's one of the things about this knowledge thing. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's generally how I've always worked. I think most people are in that thing, so just keep that in mind. Diane says, my understanding, online developer unable to view the physical data within the database. You have zero access to SQL if that's what you're talking about, Diane, but you have access to the data. You can pull it out in a variety of methods, everything from advanced find to Excel to coupled for the free tools. But you have zero access to SQL. That is correct. So now you said, is there any site where I can get some sample tasks? What are you referring to there? So we're going to find a sample test examination. We don't have any out there. That's what I was saying. I'm working on some. I think Neil Benson actually came up with one for apps, but I don't know if he ever actually sold it or not. Oh, sample test papers. Yeah. No, like I said, I've got a ton of questions. I've got to kind of reformulate and update for the latest versions. Again, it's been on my list. I've had it. If you look at any of my webinars at the very beginning, I mentioned sample tests, but I just haven't had time. It takes a lot to get all that up, and you don't want to be too close to anything you may have recalled from the test question, so you have to kind of document where you got your answers and stuff like that. Microsoft has some very specific ways that they actually write test questions. I've actually written test questions. It was the most excruciating, painful thing in my entire life. And So anyway, but I do know how they write them and stuff. And there's ways that I want to do different than them. But again, I haven't had time. I've got too many ideas, not enough time to do them because I don't sit down and do work like I should. So I goof off too much. Diane's like, would you recommend Dynamics 365 as a shopping cart site for external partners to order stuff? No, I would not. You will spend much more time than it is worth trying to put that together. There are a million different shopping cart sites. What I have is I have a company that I pay $10 a month to called e-junkie.com. It fronts to PayPal and now to Stripe that they just added. And then that takes all the money, and then it will shove it into a mailbox that I have a plug-in that takes over and pulls it out and generates the product license and then sends it to the people. I have a webinar up there on my website about how I did that. So not website, YouTube. Wes, that's a great one. Is it possible for a customer using Dynamics 365 to get access to the Microsoft Dynamics Learning Portal? I do not know, Wes. I spent about 30 minutes last night and had to make a phone call to figure that out, and I think the answer is I don't know. Does anybody know? Okay, first off, does everybody know what the Dynamics Learning Portal is? And is there any way that you can get access to it? Wes, what I think it is you have to be a partner. They get it if they pay for it. And I think if you are a customer, you have to have a support agreement. It's part of the support process. But yeah, I went through the same thing. But last night I was trying to get into something that we call customer source, and we used to be able to get to that, but I couldn't get to it, and I don't know if they changed something or if just my logins were screwed up. I could never figure it out. And I spent over 30 minutes on it last night. So I think the answer is you have to be a partner, or you have to buy a level of support, and that's part of the support package is the learning portal. Anything else? Well, some good questions today. Okay. Well, if that is it, then I appreciate your time. You have a great weekend.